Hey! Hey, and animals help as well, you know, to release negativity, and they're just...
By offering 6 months programs to young people from all around the world to chase their dreams. So part of this is that we like to organize lectures where we can also invite you guys into the school, and we're very happy that Miss Esther Jacobs is here today. Holland's most famous digital nomad. Ladies and gentlemen, a big applause for Esther Jacobs.
Thank you, and it's so nice to see many familiar faces, new faces, people I know from Facebook, people I don't know yet. Welcome to you all. I announced this presentation as something really special, a one-off thing. Normally I give presentations and I tell people what, about success, and that success is not easy, and then I give them some tips, and that's normally very successful. But I decided today I would give you a peek behind the curtains. What happens when you get, when people work against you, when things don't work, when you're disappointed in the world, when things go wrong? How do you keep going? Because I know most of you are or want to be change makers. You want to change the world, you want to set up a project, do something special. And I can tell you, you will be disappointed and things won't work. And the worst thing for the world is if you would give up. So I hope that by sharing my personal lessons and deceptions that I can help you avoid those situations and help you get out of the dip if you have one and continue doing the beautiful things that you're doing. But in order to share my behind the curtain story, first I have to give you a peek of the story that I normally tell. So I'll do that very quickly. And then we'll go deeper and get more personal. I have no idea what I'm going to share. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to be very personal and very improvised. So many people know me from Coins for Care. When the euro was introduced in 2002, I collected all the leftover coins. That's the coins that I'm holding. I had no experience. I had no budget. I had no idea what I was doing. It was a huge project, and I took it step by step. So first I approached the charities, and the charity says, we don't know you. Who is Esther Jacobs? Or you're not an A brand like we are. We don't want to work with you. Then I decided to approach retailers to put collection boxes, but they said, who are you? We don't know you. What charities are participating and what other retailers are participating. So this went on and on and on. And in the end, I managed to get like 4,000 shops, 1,000 volunteers, 140 charities. And in the end, we collected 16 million euro in old coins, in leftover money. So it was a big project, but because I didn't give up, talked to a lot of people, everybody helped me, I cut it in little bite-sized pieces, and in the end, it was a success story. But then I gave all this money to the 140 charities, and I made a contract that they had to explain what they did with the money. But many charities didn't do that. They didn't specify what they did with the money. So I went and asked them, 140 charities, what did you do with the money? And some of them said, we used it for our cause. I said, well, your cause is to end hunger in the world, but how did you spend the 22,000 euros that I gave you? And they said, well, we spend it on our cause. So they couldn't explain what happened with the money. And other charities said, hey, who are you to ask? You gave us the money? No asking. So they wouldn't explain what they did with the money. And other charities stopped existing like 3 months after I gave them the money. So where did the money go? I had no idea, and I worked very hard without any expenses, without getting paid to raise those 16 million euros. And then when you flush it down the toilet, it feels like really bad. But I didn't want to cause a scandal. So I was thinking, what can I do with this information? How can I make it into something positive? So I decided to start Holland's first donor organization, the Donateursvereniging. To ask questions, to tell donors the questions they can ask of charities, to see what rules there are. And for 3 years I promoted transparency. I created an annual, jaarverslag? annual report contest with prizes, a big consultancy firm that participated. So I did a lot of positive things to put more transparency in the charity world. That's these two stories. But then, because of what I'm going to explain later, after 7 years I was done with charity. I was really tired of the charity world and I needed to get away. So I registered for Survivor, Expeditie Robinson. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was more like I didn't want to be here, and then I ended up on a deserted island in Malaysia. And that was a special experience because I eat every 2 hours. I'm not a group person. And there you are in a group without food, with people fighting, and really interesting. But I learned a lot of things about group dynamics, about myself, that I don't give up. I told myself, Esther, if you get hungry, you just quit and you go home. It's just about the experience. But then some things happened that triggered other things, and I didn't think about being hungry. I just stayed and I just did it. And maybe that wasn't the nicest experience, but looking back, it's a very special experience. Who can say that they survived on an uninhabited island without food, right? Well, I did for 3.5 months. Then I went traveling. I've been to over 100 countries altogether. Really nice experiences. You get to know yourself. And then I went to the Caribbean island of Curacao, and I fell in love with the biggest playboy of the island. There he is, which was also an interesting experience. And I thought, like many women, oh no, that's not going to happen to me, because you don't fall in love with a guy like that, right? So I thought, okay, if I'm in this, I'm going to practice participant observation. I'm just going to be in there, but I'm going to observe also. So I decided to write a book about it. And I wrote a book about my experience with Mr. Wrong, also showing other people, men and women, that it's not about him. And it's not about your boss or the government or the economics or politics. You can always blame somebody else. But you decide if you stay. You decide if you participate. So even if you're in a relationship with a playboy, even if you're in a crisis, even if you're in an economy that doesn't work, it's never the other person's fault, because then you become dependent of the other person's or external circumstances. So what I learned from all these things together is that you cannot influence external circumstances. Climate, economics, politics, other people. The only thing you can control is your own attitude. You lose energy if you're fighting against something you cannot change. You should focus on what you can change. So that's one of the things I learned. And then I had a house in Holland, and I traveled all over the world. And then I found out that if you don't sleep in your own house for 4 months a year, that you technically cannot register. So I got fired from the Netherlands for traveling too much. They deregistered me from my own house. They quit my social security, my insurance, my health insurance, my pension. I can't vote anymore. They deregistered my company, cancelled my bank accounts, everything. There's only one institution in the Netherlands that says, Ms. Jacobs, to us, you are and will always be a cherished citizen of the Netherlands. And that's a tax service. The Belastingdienst, yes. So that was also an experience. And I thought, okay, if this is happening, I tried to change the system, it's not possible. Let's see an opportunity. Let's find an opportunity, do something different. So I registered my company in the British Virgin Islands, where you don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to do any bookkeeping. So I have no administration, no more receipts, no kilometers, no counting days, no counting hours. I'm as free as a bird, thanks to this horrible thing that happened to me. And of course, about all these experiences, I wrote books. And then people get inspired, you get invited for lectures, I make my money, I travel, I talk about what I do. So if you have this circle, it sounds like a perfect life, right? There's some dips and, you know, ups and downs, but it's pretty good. So this is the story that I normally share. And some of you who have been to my presentations before or read my books, they will recognize some things. But now, Oh, well, these are some of the lessons that you normally get from, you know, these stories. Like, if you want to do something new, you have to get out of your comfort zone. And it's scary, but any of the nice experiences you will have are outside of your comfort zone. And of course, we all think that you can be successful, but it's never like that. You have to work really hard, improvise, and, you know, it's never that easy. But you have to keep going. You know, it seems impossible, but anything can be done. And there's always various ways to solve a problem. And, you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's like a summary of all the management lessons in my stories. But here's what really happened. The charity thing, of course, when you set up a new charity and want to collect money, what is going to happen? The established charity world is going to think, who is that girl? What is she doing? She's getting into our territory. We are making money here, we're making careers, we have friends in all places, and if I need something from you, you know, I can get it from you, and then I help you. And so you're getting into a world of friends and politics and money and lots of dark sides that I didn't even know existed. I thought in the business world, yes, but in the charity world, no. But of course, you know, I thought if they want to do a collection and I do a collection, why don't we work together? Because if you're gonna make collection boxes and publicity and make a website and a call center, and I do the same thing, and then we have to make publicity saying, put your money in my collection box, no, put it in my collection box. It's better to do it together, because we all have the same objective, to get as much money to the charities as possible with as little expenses as possible, right? Well, it wasn't exactly that way, unfortunately. And it's like, if you stand out from the crowd, you know, people are ready to chop off your head. So I did everything different and faster and cheaper than the regular charities. Only because I didn't have any money. If I would have had a budget, I would have bought collection boxes, I would have bought publicity. But I had no money, so I had to be creative. So I arranged everything with volunteers, with sponsoring, by doing things differently, by being creative. And I got things done that they were kind of jealous of. They didn't think that I was there to help them. They thought that I was there to threaten their position. And of course, some charities were really happy, and especially the smaller ones. But the bigger ones that organized themselves in like working together, and the Bobos and the committees, they were like actively protesting. No, we're not going to work together with Coins for Care. We are going to do everything separately, and we're going to do it the way that we always did, because that worked, so why change? But then the charities and the volunteers and the public opinion started asking questions. Why don't you work together with Coins for Care? Esther is getting lots of free publicity. She looks like a nice person. You know, she doesn't want to make any money. She doesn't want to have a career. And she seems to organize a lot of things. So why don't you work together? And they had all kinds of excuses. But in the end, they had to work together. So we set up Euro Collector Coins for Care, like their collection and the Coins for Care joint adventure. And I thought, now the decision has been made to work together. Of course, now, you know, they have to get used to me, but everything is going to be fine. But everything that I had arranged for free, they wanted to do themselves, paid. I had free collection boxes, they paid for collection boxes. I had a free website, they had somebody design a website. I had a free call center, they hired their own call center. And in the end, from the 16 million euro that we collected, it's still hurting me to think about this. They spent 6.5 million euros in expenses. 6.5 million. And I spent 122,000 euros for everything. And all the publicity was arranged by Coins for Care. And they couldn't even do the exchanging of the money, and they had to fire the directors because they committed fraud. Everything was postponed. Well, a big, big, big story. But can you imagine? Charities, established charities, not focusing on where the money goes to the charity, but focusing on their own positions. I was so deceived. I was depressed for a year afterwards. And still talking about it. This is like 15 years ago. I can feel the adrenaline and the injustice, and it's still going on. Because as I continued with the donor organization, I was up against the same people. I wanted transparency. They didn't want transparency. Do you have any idea, if you give €1 to a charity in Holland, how much money is actually ending up in the water source or in the school books of poor children in Africa? Any idea? Make a guess.
4%.
Sorry? 4%? Anybody else? 10%? 40%? 50%? The problem is we don't know. Because they don't have to make an annual report. There is no organization checking charities what they do with the money. And we have an organization, it's called CBF, Centraal Bureau Fondsenwerving. They check if no more than 25% is spent on fondsenwerving, raising money. But the other 75% is not being checked. And you know who makes those rules? The charities. They started this organization checking the charities, and so these people formed the organization to do the collection with Coins for Care. So it's all, I made an Excel sheet with all the people and the names, you know, and they keep changing, and it's all the same people. So I was really frustrated. We don't know how much money is going to charity or actually ends up in the cause. But I think it's often no more than 10%, if any money gets there, even for a certified charity. So that's really, really frustrating. And the people involved, if they find out, they cannot speak up because they're already involved. And I tried to speak up, but I was cut down like, you're an outsider, how do you know? Why do you have to talk about percentages? And you know, so I was really, really, really frustrated. And one day I was at a seminar, charity seminar, and the person leading the seminar was one of the directors fired for fraud. Another of the directors who was fired for fraud was giving a workshop on ethics. Another one was giving a seminar on donor relations, how you keep the relationship with the donors. And the other one was like the presenter of the day. And I got physically sick. I was like, how can I be listening to these people? And all of you, you've been involved. You know that he's been fired and that he's been, how do you say, it's been proven that he committed fraud. He was fired because of fraud. Why are we listening to those people? And they were saying, Esther, Esther, why do you have to take it all so personal? You know, can't you just let go your personal differences? Just sit down, relax, listen to them talk. And I couldn't. I was physically sick. I had to get out. I ran outside, got into my car. The only thing I could think about was, I have to get away. I have to get away. No more, no more. And at that moment, there was a commercial on the radio saying, do you want to participate in Survivor? Expeditie Robinson. And all I could think of was 2 months, no email, no phone calls, no charities. Yes, I'm going to register. So 3 weeks later, I was on this island. Let me tell more about that in a little bit. Yes. Any more undressing? Any more requests? Well, I'm unveiling everything anyway, so why not? What I found from these 7 years in the charity world, I had a good story. I was telling donors what to expect of charities. I wasn't just pointing fingers, but also showcasing the things that did go right. Because there were a lot of beautiful small charities, volunteers, people doing great things. The problem is, people don't want to hear the truth. Many people don't want to hear the truth. Most donors ask me, please give me a blacklist of bad charities and give me the top 5 of good charities to make it easy for me where I give my money. And the only thing I could explain, it's not that black and white, it's not easy. Because if you want to solve hunger, for example, you can give bread or fish, or you can teach people to fish, or you can work on climate change or empowerment of women, or you can do political programs. So even if you have the same objective, you don't always have the same way of doing it. And you have the religious charities and whatever. And then the way how you organize your organization is different. So there is no good and bad. And of course, the level of expenses or overhead is also not a thing to focus on. But what we do want is transparency. So you can look at your favorite charity, see what there is to see, ask questions, and then you decide for yourself if this is good for you or not. And people are like, but this list, the top 5, the black list, can't you please make a list? And the same thing with journalists. They wanted scandals. And I invited them to my house. I talked to them for 1.5 hours. I said, if you want to hear about charity, you have to know the whole context. This is how it's organized. These things are good. These things are a blur. We don't know. These things we do know. This is what we need to make it better. And they sat there for 1.5 hours, and at the door they said, okay, but please, just one little scandal so we can write about it. People want comforting lies. They want things that are easy. They don't want to put a lot of effort. And that's a thing that I learned. If you have a complicated message, it's going to be hard to get it across. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It doesn't mean it doesn't need to be heard. But it's horrible, because the only way you get your message across is by creating scandals. Look at the gossip magazines, look at the news nowadays. They only continue with what has proven to work, to have the interest of the readers or the viewers. It's very, very hard to break through this, but it's important and it needs to be done. So my message to you is, focus on what you feel. Do what you feel is right, even if it's not easy. The harder it is, the more important it is that you do it. And don't try to do it alone. Find like-minded people to share the burden and to brainstorm about creative ways to get things done. Because you cannot do it by yourself. And also sometimes it seems like, you know, just me, what influence can I have on this big bad world? You know, how can you change a whole system? But there's a beautiful thing that I think a Buddhist once said, if you think that one tiny person cannot make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito in the room. One tiny creature can make a difference as long as you make noise, as long as they cannot ignore you. And if there's one creature and another one, then you can make yourself heard. And the problem is, whatever project you're working on, it's probably going to involve change. And everybody wants things to change, but they don't want to change themselves. And if you talk about leading the change, because somebody needs to stick their head out, right? It's scary. And a lot of times it goes wrong, but it needs to be done. Years after the charity thing, I found this book, Leadership on the Line. This is really, really recommended. Somebody gave it to me and I was like, leadership? I don't want to read about leadership. And I started leafing through it. And then I found it out it's about strategies that people use to disqualify a change maker. This is all the tricks they pulled on me in the charity world. And I was very young and naive when I started the Coins for Care organization. And now, just 2 years ago, I was reading like, oh, they did this and this too. No, this is a strategy. I didn't even know. No, it was like revealing to me. And if I had known that they were strategies, then I wouldn't have taken it personal. Because believe me, you do take things personal. And I was so naive when I was in the charity world and I explained something, why I wanted to do it a certain way. But if we do it this way, we make less expenses and we have more exposure. And then they wanted to do it another way. No, we do it with our regular agency and we just pay 300,000 euros. And I explained again and again because I thought I didn't explain it well. But they just had different agendas. And then when they found out they couldn't get rid of me, they asked me to join all their committees. So I was in all the charity committees and discussing with the government and the internal committees. And I tried to make change. And I thought they wanted that too, because they asked me in the commission, like as a change maker. They were just trying to keep me close so I couldn't do too much harm. things like that are in this book. So if you get a chance, read it. And I have some quotes. The thing is, if you're gonna change, if you're gonna lead, well, I don't like the word leadership, but if you're pioneering, apparently you're also a leader. Try to find out what it is that scares other people. And if you're going to do something, there's always going to be people against. And I wanted to focus on the people that are against. Because if I explained and explained again, maybe they would change their mind. But what I learned is some people will never change their mind. And you cannot win with arguments because it's an emotional thing or they have a hidden agenda. And in the meantime, while you're dealing with this, all the people who do want to change are waiting for you. So why don't you focus on the people that do want to go ahead? And together you can create a lot of energy and move forward and get things done. And if you leave the door open to the people who are protesting, then they won't feel bad or lose face when they come and join you later. So that's what I learned, but the natural thing, especially for women, there's a lot of women here, the natural thing is want to have everybody organized, friends, nice, you know, the same level, and you focus on the ones that shout most. But those are often the ones that you can pour all your energy in, but nothing is going to come out. Another important thing that I learned about the charity thing is choose your battles wisely. Because I came across so many things that weren't fair and injustice and things that weren't logical. And in the beginning I was focusing on everything because I thought, oh, we can change that, we can do that, we have to talk about that. And I was just losing energy. And that was also a strategy to present me with more and more projects. So I couldn't focus on one thing and I would be more harmless. So one older guy that I worked with, he told me, choose your battles wisely. You could win this. You are right. But does it serve the higher purpose to focus your energy on this right now? And even in our private life, I'm sure you recognize this. There's always something that you can fight about, that you can struggle about, that you can pour your energy in. But if you focus on the things that are really important, then you manage your energy better. And if you have 3 projects that are really important, that you can pour your energy in, the chances are bigger that you'll get something done instead of trying to change everything. But it's still hard. Even at the airport, you know, when something goes wrong with the flight and they do something wrong, and I know I can write a letter, I can appeal because I'm right. And then what do you gain? You gain 10 euros or you get an apology. Is it worth my energy? I constantly ask myself, is this worth my energy? And I still make the mistake because I'm drawn to injustice. I'm drawn to things that just stand out like, please help, help, help. But I have to protect myself. And not only myself, also the higher cause, the things that I really want to achieve. And this is also related to this one, is being right. When are you right? When the other person admits that you're right? Or can you also be right without the other person admitting it? Do you have to continue until the other person admits that they were wrong and you are right? That was my problem in the charity world. I knew that I was right and they didn't have any logical arguments. But the more I pushed and the more I pushed, the more they drew back. So it wasn't serving the higher purpose. So sometimes you have to let things go. But you have to choose which ones you let go and which ones you focus on. And that's a lifelong struggle. And that's where I found another good book. Yes?
How do you choose them?
How do I choose them? That's a good question. How do you choose the projects that you continue with or that you stop? I read this book from Seth Godin. It's called The Dip. It's a very tiny little book. And it's exactly about this question. The thing is, we all know when you're starting a project, in the beginning, you gain a lot of leverage. It goes well. Then you get a dip. Things are not working out, people are against you, you have some problems. And that's the point where many people quit. But after the dip, it goes up again. And if you continue, many other people will have quitted. Also in business, many other competitors will have stopped. If you continue, you are one of the few. And you put a lot of energy in it already. If you continue, then in the end you win, whatever it is to win. But the problem is, some of the curves, they don't go up at the end. Like for example, if you're in a paper newspaper right now, and times are difficult, right? With all the digital news, whatever, but you're still printing newspapers. And you think, this is just a dip. Let's continue. We put in more money, more energy, more people, and we'll continue because in the end we will win. But the paper newspaper curve is not going up. It's going down, and it will keep going down. When you find out that your curve is not going up, but it's a hopeless thing, then you should quit. And then it's no use thinking, I already put in so much energy and everybody else has quitted, so I'm the only one left. Because it's counterproductive. But it's really hard to know when you're in a dip or when the curve is just not going anywhere. And in the book, he gives some tips how to determine, if the line is going up or not. But it's important to recognize there's always a dip. And you have to look at like market circumstances, other people, your own intuition, logical questions you can ask. But if you find it's not going anywhere, stop. Like with the donor organization, for 7 years I started Coins for Care and then I started the donor organization. For 7 years I was talking about transparency, I was asking questions, I was giving interviews, I was giving examples. After 7 years, some of the charities that wanted to adopt my transparency, they did. Some of the ones that didn't want to, they didn't. And they wouldn't have done if I had continued for another 7 years. And I felt that the initial rush that I had, like all the publicity and the newness of my story and my questions, it started to wear off. So by putting in more effort, I would have gotten less and less and less result. And it was very, very hard, but I decided to quit. I stopped, I went with charity pension, goede doelenpensioen. I never want to have anything to do with charities anymore. And it was very, very hard, but it's the best thing I ever did. And it felt like jumping out of a running train. The train is going fast. Everybody thinks you're crazy when you're opening the door, and you open the door and you go like duk, 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 duk. And of course you're never going to jump. What is on the other side? Maybe you'll hurt yourself. Everybody's telling you you're crazy. But I knew the train was going nowhere. I could have kept talking about charities my whole life and nothing more would have changed. And I was getting unhappy, I was getting depressed. All the negativity was getting into every cell of my body. I was getting physically sick. I knew I had to jump out of the train. And when I decided and I announced that I would stop the donor organization, people started to sue me for stopping the donor organization. My own volunteers, my members of the organization, they hired lawyers. They started court cases to make me continue the free work that I did. And I said, I tried to find somebody who can take it over. Do you want to take it over? No, I don't want to take it over, but I'm going to sue you anyway. So instead of using my last energy to jump out of the train and to set up my new life, I had to do court cases and horrible press things and go against my own people. They didn't want to let me go. And by that time, I was so empty. I was so disappointed. I was so deceived. I was so depressed. That's when I decided I never want to have anything to do with charity anymore. And luckily, a few years later, I met a lot of young people who are enthusiastic about changing the world, who are starting all kinds of projects, who have energy, who don't have a hidden agenda. And slowly, my faith in people started to come back. But for years, I could only look at the bad things. Like you probably have a hidden agenda and you want something else and you're like everybody else. I had seen so many poisoned examples of people in the charity world pretending to be good, but just going for their own money, position. Wow. Well, this is a good moment, right? I think somebody agrees with my bad feelings. So also then you have a choice to, to become like a bitter person. And it took me a while before I could change it, but I decided to let go completely and to go to the tropical island, to fall in love with the Playboy, to do the Survivor program. But the most important thing I've learned, I still cannot do this, but I've learned. I'm still trying. If you forgive people, then you know, it's good for them because you don't bother them anymore. But if you can forget what has happened, then you release it for yourself. So also if you're in a fight with a person, if I want to tell you that I forgive you and I need you to accept, then I'm still dependent of you. What I'm trying to do is leave it up to the universe. Everybody will get what they deserve. I don't have to arrange that. But I want to free my mind from all the burdens, all the negativity, all the bad people that I've met. And actually, they're not bad people. It's just their actions that weren't up to my standards. Let's put it that way. But there were some really bad people. You see, I'm still working on this. It's a lifelong project. But this is something also in your personal life and all the projects you're going to do. If you hang on to anger, to resentment, it's costing you energy. And the question I'm always asking myself, where do I want to direct my energy? Where is it most useful? What can I do to make things done instead of making excuses or hanging on to the situation that's not productive? Hey, hey, and animals help as well, you know, to release negativity, and they're just in the moment, and they're, you know, they feel when you need some attention and when you need some love and care, like this one, hey? Thanks, you made the message clear. So, after this whole charity thing, I fled to the uninhabited island. And I thought, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, it's completely different. It's in Malaysia. It's, okay, it's a reality TV program. I don't need cameras, really. But I thought it's going to take my mind off things. And I had a PR advisor, and he said, Esther, don't do this. We all know when you're hungry, you're a bitch. You took years to build this good image, and now you're going to destroy it, you know, for national TV and Belgium. If they find a mango as a group, you know, they're talking about how to divide it. You will have eaten the mango already. Don't do it. And I said, I don't care. I want people to see me for who I really am. Because for the charity thing, you know, they treated me like a Mother Teresa, you know, the girl next door, raising 60 million euros, starting the donor organization. And everybody was always asking me, can you help with my project? Can you do this? Do you have this for me? Everybody wanted something from me. And I thought if they see me as a bitch, then maybe, you know, they'll leave me alone. So I thought this was the solution. So I went to the program, and who of you knows Survivor, Expeditie Robinson? Many people have seen it. It's just 2 islands, 2 groups of people. They compete for food, they vote other people off, and in the end, you know, there's one winner who wins a lot of money. But every year, they have a surprise. So in my year, 2005, they put 2 people in a cave for 2 weeks, and the others didn't know about them. And guess who was in the cave? And we thought, it was with one other guy from Belgium. We thought that we were going to be there for 1 day, maybe 2 days, because we didn't have any food. We weren't allowed to leave the cave. And you cannot put people in a cave, right? Every day we thought it was the last day. It turned out to be 2 weeks in a cave. And at the end of the 2 weeks, we're not going home. At the end of the 2 weeks, they said, okay, now you can build a raft. And you see that little island over there? You swim there, and that's where the other people are. And finally, you're going to be together with the other people. And we're like, oh, we're so excited. Yeah? Okay. What are we going to do about the sound? I think there's also a microphone. Do we have a microphone? Or if some of you want to come forward, we still have some space here, so bring your chairs, come forward. Wow, the weather is just amazing. We came by bicycle. Yeah, move even more forward. You can sit here if you want. There's more space and there's some seats and chairs.
Yeah, no, sorry, we don't have the cables.
Okay, no problem. There's empty chairs here, so if you don't have a chair, come and sit here or bring your chair. You can come even more forward, please. Come over here. Kom nog een beetje naar voren toe. Je kan helemaal hier aanschuiven, dan kunnen zij er ook nog bij. Is this better? Can you hear me now? 10 more minutes. Yeah? We're good? Okay, great. Thanks for mentioning that, by the way. So basically, I was on the raft. We were swimming to the other island. We met the other people and we're like, oh, finally we meet the other people. So what did you do and how is it going? What's life like on the island? And they were like, 2 more people? What are you doing here? We already voted people off. You know, we created our friends and now they have 2 new people. Why? And then the production, they have a few buttons they can turn, right? To make people feel uncomfortable, to create more conflict. So what did they do? They mixed the groups. So the friends you thought you had are not your friends anymore. Suddenly they're your enemies and your enemies are your friends now. They made me and the other guy a leader of the group. So they put us on a stage. This is why I feel uncomfortable being, you know, higher than you are. With a flag and a medallion and said, you cannot vote Esther off. Esther is your new leader. You don't know her. No problem. We take away all your friends. We mix the groups. Oh, by the way, all the people you voted off, there they are. They're coming back. Yay! So people were like, they were so angry. And what did they point their anger at? Yeah. The person standing there with the flag and the medallion, you know, on a higher scale. And then they said, oh, by the way, Esther gets a bed and her own hut and whatever. And I said, of course, no, I don't want anything. I just want to be with you and talk about what we've done, what you've done so far and what are we going to do. They didn't want to talk to me. They didn't want to introduce themselves. They didn't want to share their food. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. And for 10 days afterwards, the 7 people in my group fought against me 24 hours a day. Every day they had a new argument. The first one was, oh, you haven't been in the cave. You know, you look too nice. You know, we have flea bites on our legs and you don't have them. I said, well, there weren't any fleas in the cave. Doesn't matter, you haven't been in a cave. Okay. The next day they said, the other guy and you both have a red scarf around your head. You see, you're models from an agency. And then the presenter said, no, she's really been in the cave and she's really a participant. Well, we don't care, we don't want her here. The next day they said, well, you're the last person to join, so obviously you're the first person to have to leave. And they said, Esther, we don't like you. Your personality doesn't fit with the group. So every day they had a new argument. And every day I said, well, you want me to give up the leadership? I will do that, to be just like you, but then will you give me a chance? Yes, of course we'll give you a chance. You give up your leadership and we will vote you off. Well, that's not really an option either. And I felt so lonely. I didn't have my friends from the cave anymore. I was just by myself. You know, there's images of me crying, like it's not fair. But what can I do? And every day you're interviewed. So the camera people come and they say, Esther, how are you today? What is your strategy? And it feels like somebody's really listening to you, like the only person really interested in how you feel. So every morning the camera crew would come and say, Esther, what is happening? It's so horrible. Everybody's, you know, fighting you. How do you feel? I say, well, every day I hope that this is going to be a new day and that they're finally going to see the light. So what is your strategy? What do you want to do? And I go like, well, you know, the only thing I can do is hope things will change and just get through this day. And I'm like looking, where are are they? Well, they're not talking to me anymore. They had the walkie-talkie, we're standing by the water, talking to the production crew. Yes, she's staying, let the circus begin. So I felt like nobody cared about me, everybody was against me. And later people told me that they would have left, they couldn't have taken so much pressure. And you know what kept me going? Two things. First thing is they started even before they knew me. They saw me standing on the platform with the flag and they were like, so it's not about me, it's about the position I was put in. If they had waited half an hour and told me, Esther, we don't like your personality, I would have taken it personally. They were using the same words, the same arguments, the same principles, but I didn't feel it because I knew it was directed against my position and not against my person. But still, it was really difficult. And I was hungry, I was miserable, a lot of reasons to give up and go home. What was the one reason not to go home? Because they wanted me to. And it's the same thing that happened in the charity world. My first objective was to raise a lot of money for charity, and that's a reason to get started. A nice project, do something good. But then it turned out to be really difficult. No money, no experience, no network, and still you have to create this huge project. That was a challenge. And I'm excited about challenges, so I thought, okay, if everybody says it's not possible, I'm going to prove it's possible. But then all the charities started working against me. So you're already trying to do something impossible, and they're trying to take the legs of your chair away. So it really felt like horrible. But I discovered that when people are against me, when there's injustice, it awakes like a wolf in me. I don't care if I'm hungry, I don't care if it's unreasonable. If you are unreasonable to me and there's injustice, I'll fight against it. So the same thing happened on the island. They were being so unreasonable that I didn't care about hunger, I didn't care about being lonely. I just wanted, if everybody wants me to go and it's so unreasonable, I'm gonna stay, no matter how bad I feel. And of course, that made them even go harder because, you know, I didn't break, but I grew stronger. So in the end, after 10 days, the production changed the rules again. And they said, now you can vote Esther off. Well, within a day, I was in an airplane back to Europe. And I thought, okay, that's it. I had 2 interesting weeks in the cave, like mindfulness, nothing to do, but okay. Then 10 horrible days on the island with the people fighting me. Let's leave it behind. Let's continue with my life. It was interesting, but that's it. That's when they started airing the TV shows. And everybody in Holland and Belgium could see that I had really been in the cave and that it had been difficult and that how people treated me was really unreasonable. And they started seeing me as a hero again. They stopped their cars in the street to shake my hand. Students were yelling from the windows. I got 10,000 emails. And the funny thing about the emails was, people knew if I was on the island, I didn't have email access, right? But they were writing me, hang on, you know, don't go. It's like weird. Be strong. And then when I got out, not only were people nice to me and I was treated as a hero, but the people who had been angry at me, like the 2 guys who were mainly the bullies, they were attacked in the streets, physically attacked. By 11-year-old girls, but also by 70-year-old grandmothers said, what did you do to Esther? Don't you do that? And they didn't feel safe anymore. On the internet forums, they were forming like knokploegen. Where do they live? What is their address? Are there still trains going tonight? And people went to their houses to beat them up. So, and one of them went to live in Belgium with their mother again. And another one emigrated to Spain. So this was real. And this was just a reality show. For 7 years in the charity world, I had been on TV, like weekly, radio, magazines. My face was everywhere. And I had a good message. Ask questions to charities. You know, it was like a content-wise good message. Nobody ever recognized me in those 7 years. Nobody. And after 2 weeks of Expedition Robinson on TV, everybody knew who I was. I was in a plane, a train, even in the sauna or the swimming pool. People were like, hey, Esther! It's like, yes. But it's special what injustice does to people. Injustice is a trigger. It stays with people. So another thing that I learned, but only years later when I was interviewed about everything that I'd done, and the journalists were asking, so what is the connection between Coins for Care and the charity and the survivor thing? I'm like, they're two completely different things, right? Charity, survivor, I don't see a relation. I said, think. What is the relationship? And in the end, I got it. I went in there, naive, with good intentions, and people saw me as a threat and treated me as a threat. In the charity world, I wanted to give away money. I wanted to help them raise money, and they saw me as a threat and worked against me. In the survivor thing, I just went there. I was put in a cave. I came out. It was like, oh, hi, how are you? And they were like, where is she coming from? No, we don't want that. So no matter what you do, you always take yourself with you. And you can run away, you can go traveling, you can do whatever you want. You always take yourself with you. And it doesn't mean that you have to change. It means you have to accept who you are. I know that wherever I go, there's always 10% of people going like this. No further. And I can concentrate on those 10%, or I can concentrate on the 90% of people saying, hey, that's interesting. What about this idea? Can you help me with this? And that's something I have to train myself for and remind myself every single day. Focus on the people who want to change, who want to achieve something. Don't focus on the people who are afraid, who feel threatened, because they don't listen to your reasonable arguments. They don't listen to the facts. They only have their emotions and their fear. And fear is an emotion that you cannot win. You cannot win from fear, let's put it that way, because it's strong and it grips people. So that's something that I've learned from that, from the reality TV show. And then, of course, the Mr. Wrong story. We've been together for 7 years. It was the best time of my life. We sailed the Caribbean. He taught me kite surfing. He cooked for me. He caught lobsters. You know, it's the perfect guy as long as you're together. When you're not together, he can be the perfect guy to somebody else. And of course you feel these things and you know and you think, but he's always saying, no, you're my everything. Of course I wouldn't do that. In the past I did that, but not anymore. And he has changed and people acknowledge that he has changed. But there's always this nagging feeling. But for 7 years I chose to believe him and ignore my own intuition. And it has cost me years to recover because your intuition is always right, even if you cannot prove it. Also in the charity world. Like the charity people were saying, no, we also want to get as much money as possible to give to the charities and have as little expenses as possible. Of course we want that. But their actions were completely different. And I chose to believe their words because I was young, I was naive, I had no experience. And only later, looking back, I realized that my intuition had always been right. And now I'm learning again to trust my intuition. And it's very hard to distinguish your intuition, this little voice, from being scared, from guessing, from other people's influences. But if you learn to distinguish it, it's the only thing you can always trust, because it's you, it's yourself. Don't put your trust in other people. Trust them, but only if it feels good for you. In relationships, in work, in big projects. If you feel like in a new partnership, it doesn't feel right, don't do it. It will take you years to find out why you had that feeling and you will be wasting energy. And what you're getting by now, energy is like my main thing. You don't want to waste your energy. You want to focus it on something that's important to you and important to the world. So what did I get from the being kicked out of Holland story? I already told you a little bit in the introduction. It was a horrible thing, it was frustrating, it was unfair. I was deregistered, even though I'm knighted by the Queen. I'm an example citizen for the city that I raised all this money. I've been paying taxes my whole life, but still, Holland didn't want me anymore. I was frustrated, I was depressed, but I turned it around. If you're in a shitty situation, there's always a present hidden somewhere. So instead of, you know, being afraid of the shit, like, oh no, oh, you better dive in and find the present. The present that I've found in the shitty situation is freedom. Because people always say you cannot live if you're not registered anywhere. If you don't exist in the system, ooh, be careful. But I found out that the sun comes up every day. I eat, I drink, I meet people, I work. Not being registered is not the end of the world. And having a company in the British Virgin Islands, not having to pay any taxes, also means that you don't have to do any administration. When I buy something now and they say, do you want a receipt? I say, no. Every day, like 5 times a day, I have a smile on my face. No, I don't have to do that anymore. And of course, the tax people still don't agree. I had a meeting with them this afternoon and they were like really confused about this whole situation because I'm very transparent. I'm not trying to avoid taxes. I'm willing to pay taxes, but then I also want the rights. If I don't have rights, I don't want to pay for like Social Security. So we still don't have a solution, but I embrace the situation. I'm a pioneer. I'm sticking my head out again. People are trying to chop it off, but I know the drill. I know what's happening. I need to take a sip of water, sorry. So, this is one of the important things. You cannot influence external circumstances, but you can make the most of the circumstances. So if you look at your situation objectively, you notice that there's waves. Now you can talk about the weather forecast that you checked, that there weren't going to be any waves. You can sue the Weather Channel, but that's not bringing you closer to what you want. Observe the situation, your competitors, the political climate, your relationship, and just be objective. Don't talk about or think about how it came to be this way, what should have been different. This is what we have right now. And then think what you can do. So if there's waves, you learn how to surf. If there's an opportunity, you try to take the opportunity. But don't waste your energy on discussing if the glass is half empty or half full. Just go to the tap and put more water in there. Because we all want a full glass. This is my last slide, so we'll have something to drink soon. And I'll ask for if there's any questions. But looking at my own process and talking to other pioneers, I found that we're constantly going through this circle. Strive, struggle, and shine. Strive is when you really want something. And not just a cup of coffee or a cookie, whatever, but something big, something that's really special, that you're willing to give your life for, that is really big, that's difficult, that's bold, that you're passionate about. Something to change the world, something that you really want to achieve, and that's difficult. That creates energy. You want to do it. It will take you out of your comfort zone. You will probably have to go off the beaten track, because if there's already a beaten track, then it's not special anymore. You just follow, you know, the guidelines and you get there. So when you feel this, and I'm sure many of you have this strive moment because you're here, then you know this is something you want to work for. You know it's not going to be easy. You get started, you get into the struggle. That's the dip, basically. You have your ups and downs, you have some burdens, you have to take some detours, you'll meet some bad people, you'll meet some people who help you. But you have to focus, you have to continue. You have to find creative solutions. Find partners, partnerships, people who help you a little bit, people who inspire you, people who support you, people who let you cry on their shoulder until you can continue. Find your own way. Explore the limits of what's possible. And then, when you do this, you will get to the point of shine. You'll get out of the dip, have your brief moment of success, your 2 minutes of fame. And enjoy that moment, because as Dutch people, we were raised to be like very modest. Like, oh, do you have a new dress? Well, it was on sale. And, oh, it's a beautiful project, congratulations. Well, it's nothing, you know, it was actually simple and I didn't do it by myself. And so we never take credit for what we did. So take your moment to enjoy. Like Coins for Care, I fucking raised 16 million euros. And if you do that, you acknowledge everything that has happened, But also there's a moment to share with others, like I'm doing now. The lessons that you've learned, the mistakes that you've made, the feelings that you've had. So you help others who are still in the struggle phase to continue, to know that it's worth it. So step into your power, leave a trail, share with others, and enjoy this moment, because before you know it, either your competitors catch up with you, or there's a new process or a new project, or you have a new strive idea, and you go into the struggle all over again. I made the mistake of thinking that it was only a one-off thing. I thought I would do Coins for Care, do something good, tick it off my list and continue my life. But then the donor organization came, and then the survivor thing came, and then the Mr. Wrong came, and then the being kicked out of Holland thing came. And I can think now that, you know, I've had it all. I have 5 stories, I have like 16 books, and that's it. I can continue the rest of my life in peace. But I know there's something around the corner. And I don't want to look at it. I just want to enjoy my peace and quiet. But I know something's lurking behind my shoulder. I don't know if you can see it already, but I don't want to. So this is what I found, and I don't know if any of you recognize this. If you know where you are in this circle, it makes it easier to react. So if I feel at ease now, I know I'm at my shine moment, so that's allowed, that's okay. But if you're in the middle of the struggle, usually there is not a time to relax. You have to push on. And when you have a strive moment, you better think before you go on. Is this what I want to focus on? Is this the right project for me? Is it the right time? Because once you start, once you get into the struggle, you will want to continue. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. And I'm open for questions. Thank you. My first question is this what you came for? Or is there anything that I didn't share? Or? I don't know. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. You had a question.
Yeah, because I was wondering, while you were doing all that stuff, how did you pay for your normal?
How did I support myself while working for the charity? A good question. I've never worked for a boss in my life, so I've always been self-employed. So I create projects and I make money, but of course all my energy was going into the charity world. But I rented myself out as a freelancer to Capgemini to do like, it's like a pressure cooker for companies. 6 days, I work 100 hours in 6 days. I get paid a lot of money, but of course I'm very tired. And then after those 6 days, I have to catch up with the missed work from the charity world. But at least it kept me going for like 2 months. So every now and then, and later I was giving presentations like I'm doing now. And that paid for, you know, a few months of living. But I had to balance what I was doing. And when I went to Curacao, when I met the Mr. Wrong and I gave myself like a sabbatical, I decided, okay, I'm not going to work. Only if I'm asked for a presentation, I'll fly to Holland, do the presentation, and then get back into the hammock and do nothing. At the end of the year, I looked at what I had earned, and I had earned more in my year of sabbatical than I had earned in all those years before. And before I felt like I was working constantly, and during my sabbatical I felt like I was on a constant holiday with every now and then a lecture. And I decided, hey, this could be my life. And from that moment on, it has been my life. And actually by talking about that, I get paid and I can do more of it, and I talk about that and I get paid more. So it's like also a circle, a nice one actually.
Suppose that thing lurking in the shadow shows up, how would you know whether to say yes or no?
This thing lurking in the shadow doesn't take yes or no. Like the whole thing with being kicked out of the country. I didn't want it to happen. And I resisted and I wrote letters and I wanted everything to stay the way it was. But at one point it's too big. And really it feels like you're looking at it and think, this is too big. I know, you're the thing lurking in the shadow, right? Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's do it. So, but after a few circles, you know, you learn to recognize it.
Is it somewhere in your body?
Also, because that's a funny thing. They call me the no excuses lady. So I give presentations about taking situations, turning them around into opportunities, from problems to opportunities, and looking for a positive solution, not getting sucked into energy draining things. And there I was for 3 months fighting, you know, with the city, with the government, with the tax people, writing letters, feeling depressed, frustrated, injustice. It has to stop, it's not fair. And in the meantime, I got on stage and oh, you have to turn things around. And then I went back home like, oh. And then after 2 months, I thought, this is weird. Maybe I should apply my own principles and, you know, turn the switch. But it takes a while. It takes a while, even for me, even after so much practice. Because when something gets so close to you, you can't do the helicopter view anymore. So you're like really involved. So you have to take a step back every now and then to see what the situation is.
But you still have citizenship, right?
No, I don't exist.
You don't have citizenship anymore.
What sort of passport do you have?
I have a Dutch passport. I got it with a lot of trouble. And if I want a new passport, I cannot go to the city hall. I cannot go to an embassy or consulate. I have to go to a special window in Den Haag where the homeless people go. And then they take 6 weeks to determine if I'm going to get my new passport.
Citizenship away because you live for 4 months outside of the country?
No, I'm less than 4 months in Holland. But I don't live in another country. And they say if you're in Holland for less than 4 months, then you must live somewhere else. And they don't take into account that there's more and more digital nomads who travel and be 2 months here, 2 months there.
And it's funny because people are actually trying to become stateless and are not allowed. So
That's
they just
true.
should go.
That's true. And I was paying taxes, even though I don't really formally live in Holland. But they said I was committing fraud. I said, it's my own house, I don't have social security, I'm paying taxes, what's the problem? No, you're an exception, so you're committing fraud. And that's the way the system works. And I'm trying to change that.
Using that word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did you want to be when you were a child?
I wanted to be a sea mammal biologist because I wanted to work with dolphins. But then I found out that first you have to become like a biologist and then you have to study sea biology and then finally you can specialize in dolphins. And then I thought, why don't I go traveling and just look at dolphins? So that's the most honest answer I can give.
Well, I was just wondering, because you seem a very passionate person about these kind of things. But, well, from my experiences, when I get too passionate, I cannot sleep anymore. Not because I'm worried, but because I just get a lot of
excited.
Plans. Your brain is like...
Yes.
Which gave me a burnout in the end. So I got a bit scared of doing this kind of stuff. So how do you deal with that? I'm actually kind of curious. Do you sleep still? Or
I do, but there's 2 things that keep me up. That's injustice. It keeps going over and over in my mind. That's not fair and that's not right, and that keeps me up. But also, like you're saying, oh, I'm so excited I can do this and da. So actually it's eating at you from 2 directions. But what I think people who get a burnout are perfectionists. So often good enough is good enough. And if you apply the 80-20 rule, that you put 20% of effort into 80% of the result and then go on to something else, you create something that for many people is like, wow. And for you, it's like, well, it could have done better. But what if you put then 80% of your energy in improving the last 20%? That's not smart. And still we do that sometimes. So if you know for yourself good enough is good enough, and I like to create things quickly and then leave them, and it's very hard if nobody else wants to continue, then sometimes, you know, they fall again. But that's where I get my energy. And like you say, taking things personally, being a perfectionist, not letting go. I've had sleepless nights. I've had maybe I've had a burnout, but I didn't even have time for it because I was just going on. But after the 7 years of charity, I was just empty. Completely empty. I was in Curacao in a hammock. I was not even reading a book. I was just doing nothing. And I could feel the negativity in my cells, in my body. I could feel it. And now it's released for a large part. But you saw me when I'm talking about it. I can still get upset. I can still get angry. I can still feel the frustration. So I think it's never going away. But I'm trying to use that passion. If you focus on things that you can influence, you have a result. And if you're fighting against the wall, against things you cannot change, then you get burnout. So choose your battles wisely. and enjoy the creation energy that you have.
You just talked about getting the helicopter view and taking a step back. I find myself mostly in the details and in the moment, so for me sometimes it's hard to do that. Have you any tips to have the overview again?
Yeah, there's a few tips. Some people like a buddy system. If you have a buddy, even somebody from here, it can be a friend, it can be somebody from your class or from a course you're doing, or another business person, just to have regular chats. Because if you talk to that other person, you can see you are their helicopter view. So you can see the context, and they can do the same for you. So that can be a simple help.
So what would concretely be the main question of this conversation?
It's basically like a sparring partner. You talk once a week or once a month, and you tell the other person what you're working on, what you're happy about, what you're worried about. And each one of you can give tips to the other person. That's always easy. So if you do that for the other person does it for you. Ask questions. That's the start. And also help you see the context. And it's really, really useful. Other tips is to take time out, like physically. Do meditation. In Curacao, I used to go swimming a lot. So for half an hour, you're swimming, there's little fish. And every time I came out of the water, I had a new perspective. I was like, hey, that's interesting. And if you get stuck thinking or writing, don't continue. Don't force yourself to continue. Go do something else. Do physical exercise. Do something else. Walk the dog. Do the dishes. And by letting your mind get some rest, you will get new insights. So don't force yourself. Sometimes it's really great to work hard, but if you feel that you have a block, don't go against the concrete block, try to go around it, try to do something else. That's the things that help me. Be nice to yourself. Any other questions? Or do we want to get a drink? Yeah?
With regards to getting partners for, like, for example, your
Coins for Care?
adventure,
Yeah.
What would you recommend with regards to that?
Okay, to find partners for your project.
Yes. So you've seen a lot of people, you've talked to a lot of people?
The first thing is, in fact, asking for help. So talking to people, this is my plan, who do you think I should talk to, what do you think I should do? Because people get interested, they get your passion, your motivation, and they start thinking, oh, this book I read, this person I talked to, this website. And also creating win-win-win situations. I see a lot of people who are working on great projects and they're asking for favors. You know, I'm working on this project to change the world and I want to give a presentation, and then maybe, would you let me borrow your space? Maybe just a little bit? No, say that you're working on this beautiful project and you know that Knowmads is also doing beautiful projects to change the world. And what if we give a presentation, you know, in this space and all this comes together and we create a win-win-win situation? It's completely different than asking for a favor. And you can always turn a favor around into a win-win-win situation. And if you can't, you're not looking for partners, you're looking for sponsors. So that's the win-win-win situation is a real big thing.
Isn't that how you work with a lot of your projects now?
Yeah, of course it's easier
with other people.
Of course it's easier to the charity that I set up. You know, it's for charity, so it's easy to get things for free or easier. But example, I was in Buenos Aires a few weeks ago or a few months ago, and I got a private tango teacher. I learned how to dance tango. I was really excited. And I wanted to share it with other people. And my tango teachers had never left Buenos Aires. They had never been in a plane. They didn't have any money. So I bought a ticket for them. And I invited them to Holland for 2 weeks. I organized workshops so people from my network could also experience the tango thing. I didn't make any money. I just wanted the experience. I was helping them. And I was asking my friends to pay money to help them come to Holland and to have this experience. So that was also a win-win-win situation. And I met Guus, I don't know where you are. Yeah, I met Guus and I said, can I borrow your space to do the workshops? And then we'll do a lecture and the students can also participate and new people will come to Knowmads and know Knowmads. So we created win-win-win situations without much thinking and without any hidden agenda. It was just so logical for everybody to do this. So the tango teachers had a great time, like for the first time in a different country, meeting people. The participants had a great time, and now they want them to come back, so I booked another ticket for them in September. They're going to be here for a month. And I had a great time with private dance lessons like for 2 weeks and making new friends and getting to know new people. So I apply it to everything in my life. Even when I don't know I'm applying it, because this wasn't a business project, it was just something really small that ended up becoming really big and being very nice. Yeah, shall we have a drink? And if you have any more questions, come to me over there, and then we can talk some more. Thank you so much for being here, and no more excuses. Make the world a better place. Thank you.